What's up guys, Axis here, and today I'm going to be doing a quick overview of Octane for Cinema 4D. Now, I'm aware that a lot of my subscribers probably won't have this, and it is quite an expensive program, so you know, if you're planning on buying this, or you are an enthusiast and you're already using this program, or you just have the program, then you can follow along and learn a bit about Octane. Also, I'll leave a link in the description to the website where you can actually find the trial version for Octane, which is also quite good because, you know, you can see what the program is all about. You can see if you actually like it, if you have any use for it, obviously, and then you can kind of you know, judge from that if you want to make a purchase like this and get Cinema 4D Octane. So basically, first off, I'm just going to be, you know, giving some background information on this program. So first off, we've got the fact that this is a completely GPU only renderer. So obviously, if you're using a laptop, you are most likely not going to have a standalone graphics card built in. You might have like a Intel graphics or, you know, something like that, which isn't ideal, obviously. But some laptops I'm aware that actually have proper graphics cards in there. So what I'm going to be talking about is I'm going to be talking about an array of things to do with Octane, and on your screen you can see that we've got a bunch of different tiles that you can click on. So, you know, if there's a specific thing that you're interested in, just click on it. It'll take you to that part of the video, and I'll be talking about a lot of stuff in this video, so, you know, if you want to watch it all the way through, then that's great. So thanks, and you know, I'll see you in the next part. Right, so optimizing your system for rendering in Octane, you can use graphics cards only, obviously, and the problem with this is that if you are rendering something with only one graphics card, and, you know, you're just using the live preview and you're trying to go through your scene, you can have a lot of stuttering if you're only using like the one graphics card you have, because obviously Octane's going to be using all the graphics card's power, and you won't be able to actually run Cinema 4D at a decent frame rate. So that's the problem with the live renderer I've experienced. But if you're willing to, you know, shell out and buy another graphics card, it doesn't even have to be that good a graphics card. You can set it so the one that's not being used, that's at the bottom, or like that's not being plugged into your monitor, you can set that as your kind of your preview renderer, and then you can just go through your scene and it will be at full speed, obviously, because you will have your normal graphics card which is being unaffected by the Octane renderer. And you can have as many graphics cards as you want, as many as it can fit, as long as they're NVIDIA cards. And I know this might be kind of annoying for some of you guys because there are AMD cards out there that are really good, but Octane actually relies on CUDA cores. So, you know, if I was to give a recommendation for like a top tier card that you're going to want to buy, which is, you know, it's a decent price, it's not like a Titan Z, which is like 5,000 cores and it's £2,000, it's just completely extortionate for what it actually is. I'd really recommend a 780 Ti, because this card has got the most amount of CUDA cores out of any graphics card out there, other than the Titan Z, obviously. It's got 2,880, I believe, which is even higher than the new range of 980s. And since those cards have just been released, if you've been following anything to do with graphics cards, you know, if you're a PC gamer or anything, you'll realise that the 780 Ti's have actually been discontinued. So the prices dropped dramatically, and you can actually get an amazing deal on these. So the price has been like cut by at least £200, because I picked one up for about £200 less than it originally is on eBay, which is manufacturer refurbished, and I've had no problems with it. And then that's my main card, and then below it I've got my 970, which is actually the kind of the preview card. So yeah, that's my setup there. That's how I managed to render previews while keeping a full speed kind of Cinema 4D up. So yeah, and just bearing in mind that buying two 780 Ti's is actually a lot cheaper than buying a CPU such as the new Haswell E CPUs with a DDR4 RAM. It's a lot cheaper than buying that and the motherboard. It's probably still cheaper than the most expensive DDR4 CPU right now. So just keeping that in mind, it might actually be a better idea to, instead of upgrading your CPU and your motherboard and all that, you buy Octane and then you buy a graphics card, and you'll probably have better performance, and you obviously have an amazing render which allows you to make interior scenes and exterior scenes that look a lot more realistic than you'd ever be able to render in this standard Cinema 4D interface. So yep, that's just going to be my part on the setting up Octane. I'd really not recommend this if you were using a laptop, obviously, because this is going to be impossible to use unless you have a graphics card that is made by Nvidia. Right, so now that we're in Octane, we're going to start using some of the tags that are included to allow you to export your scene to the live viewer. So if we just go ahead and create a simple scene, just add an object, and then what we're going to do here is we're going to add a HDRI, which you can do in Cinema 4D, but there's actually, it's not called a sky. If you go into your Octane render settings, you can find it under Objects and HDR Environment. And actually, if you go into the tag here and then click the menu thing, then you can find a .hdr file. You can find these all over the internet. They're completely free. Just type it in on Google and I'm sure you'll find them. Just click no at that dialog box. And as you can see, the scene has appeared. And normally what you'd have to do is put a compositing tag onto this sky to make sure that the sky in the background doesn't actually appear. Or if you want it, you can keep it, but what I'm going to do here is if you click on settings, you can actually uncheck keep environment. And I'm going to go into settings in the next part here in this video, but I just thought I'd show you that just to keep it all together. But then what we can do is we can create a quick material. Again, I'm going to go into more depth about this material editor here. So I'm going to go glossy, and then I'm just going to put this up completely to the top, just so we get all the reflections so you can see them. And then if we do the export to scene, what we can see is the reflections. If you're wondering why this is all jagged and stuff, it's because there's no background behind it because I've selected alpha channel. But when you put this into After Effects and add a background to it, like a black background, and do some effects and whatnot in the background, this will absolutely be fine. You will not have any problems. So yeah, that was one of the problems that I had, but just to confirm this, I'll show you. If I uncheck alpha, you can see that it's going to go away. Also, since this is a preview, it's not going to use render perfect. So if you want it to have all the segments, then you're going to want to turn up the segments here in your sphere. Keeping in mind that when you actually render this, you don't have to have the segments all the way up because render perfect is checked. That will just make sure the sphere has no jagged edges. So if we re-render this, we can see all the edges are fine now. We don't have any problems with anti-aliasing. So there we go. And then if I start moving this about in the scene, you're going to see that there's not an actual update, which they've fixed because you have a tag in Cinema 4D Octane tags. If you right click on your the object you want to be updated, you can go to the Cinema 4D Octane tags and then go into the flyaway and then go to Octane object tag. And here you can see this will move about. This is another glitch. All you need to do is refresh the scene and you won't have that little duplication thing there. So, and if you were having problems where this wasn't actually working, even when you added the object tag, what I figured out was that if you click on options and check geometries, this will actually update. So I'll try it again. If I uncheck it, see, it's not going to move about now. That was just, I don't know why that is not checked, but it's just not by default for me at least. So obviously you can add animation to this. So if I go over here, click keyframe, go to third second, and then put this all the way over here. Bearing in mind, you know, this is like a really quick preview here. This is completely in real time, which is brilliant. And if I remember correctly, you can add a motion blur. I think they add it in the camera mostly, but that's what I'm going to get onto next, the cameras. You have to use a specific camera for this. You can either click up here for Octane camera tag, and then we're going to go into the camera here. And in fact, I'm going to show some of the features here. So if we duplicate one of these and bring it out behind it, I'm going to show the one of the features here. We've got in thin lens, when you click on the tag on Octane camera, we have, just turn up these two. As you can see, the sphere behind it is actually blurring out here because we're focusing on this sphere here. So this is real-time depth of field, which is absolutely amazing, and you know, you can do this really quickly. You can just mess about with some of the parameters. It's set on autofocus, but you can like choose the focus with pick focus up here and stuff. So obviously, like the limitations, there's not really many limitations with this kind of a tool. But as you can see, sometimes it'll try and focus on the background and it will go and blur the whole scene out. I've only had this problem once or twice, but normally it's fine. And then once we go into the camera again, we can find all these settings here for the camera. So if you've ever used like a camera at all, like a DSLR, or you know, even just a simple digital camera, you'll be able to see some of these settings are similar to that of one on an actual camera. So you can, you know, you can change the response, which I don't really do. I don't really mess about with this because the colors, you can make them look really weird. But I'm just leaving it on the default one that they've left it on. You make sure you enable this first, and then what I do is I normally take off vignetting. Vignette, if you don't already know, is the kind of black fade out thing at the edge of the screen, which you can easily do in After Effects or any other program for compositing. So, you know, you can uncheck that, leave that. If you want to mess about with any of these, see if I increase the exposure, you're going to see that it's going to be more exposed to the environment. So if I undo that, you know, we've got some nice parameters. I don't normally mess about with this because, you know, you can do most of the color correction and stuff in the post-production. So I'm going to uncheck that and then go into post-processing. Now this is kind of like a diffuse effect. So if I check this on, you can see that we're going to get some kind of lens flares here. Sort of a lens flare, but it's like a diffuse on kind of the bright bits. And there we have the glare power, which is quite a nice effect. And if you weren't to add any color correction to this, it would still be amazing. As you can see when we rotate around this, it's just amazing how quickly this updates. So yeah, I normally do most of this in post-production, but you know, it will slow down render times slightly, but it's still a very good addition. And you know, if you want to use this only, then you can. Motion blur, that's what I was trying to do earlier. If we check this on, I wouldn't normally do this because you can just use Real Smart Motion Blur, which is a plugin for After Effects. But as you can see, if you don't want to get that plugin, you can just use this. And if I turn up the shutter slightly, don't know how well I'm going to be able to see this. Maybe if I speed up the animation, it might. Oh, see, I put the shutter up a bit too high. So the shutter speed, if you've ever used like a camcorder or anything, you see that it's basically, I don't know how really to explain it, but I think it's how fast or how slowly the lens like shuts and closes. Not really up on my camera terms, but you know. So obviously turning it up, there's going to be a lot more motion blur. And it is a bit glitchy at points, but if you put it down to a decent amount, then it's not going to be too bad. But I'll leave this off because, again, it slows down render times. Not dramatically, but, you know, I think it also looks better in After Effects when you use this. And then we can go ahead and use lights. So obviously you can make a light, and then you can create a tag on it, or you can just go into, again, options and Octane area light. Even you have an Octane target light as well, which you can use, but I don't normally use it because I don't normally need to focus one light on something that's moving. It is a really good addition though, because if you wanted to follow like an object that's moving, I could try it, but you know, I'll probably try that in a minute. As you can see, here we have the lights kind of just showing. So if you want to get rid of this, we go into the tag and visibility, camera visibility, uncheck that. If you don't want shadows to show, then uncheck shadows. I'm just going to leave that one on. And then in light settings, we have the temperature. So this is like your kind of color, I guess. So if you wanted like a blue color, you'd go to the higher temperature. If you wanted a orange kind of sun color, then you can go down to the 2000s, or even a red color down at 500. You know, you can create quite a lot of colors with this slider, and you know, you can fine tune it really easily. So just remember 6500, which is the normalized one, the just the neutral color. And here we have power, which is basically the brightness. What I love about the area light is that you don't need to put a tag on it or anything, like an object tag. You can just duplicate one, put one up here. We like rotate it around. You can still scale stuff up, but mostly stuff in here does not affect the actual lighting, apart from turning the intensity up really high, which is not a really good way to do things, but you know. So there we go, we've got kind of an orangey color there. And then we'll go into the second one, we'll make this blue. So as you can see, we can just uncheck this, recheck it. So normally what I do is I'd make these go further out so you can't see the reflection as much. But you know, that's quite good. So I'm going to try the target light just to show you guys what it does. We've also got daylight, which is quite good, but that's just kind of self-explanatory. I'm going to put this onto the sphere, and if I go through the scene, you're going to see that this is going to follow the object. Even in the live view you can see it. It's got all the same tag options, it's just got a target on it. You can do this for a camera as well, obviously, just like in normal Cinema 4D. What else do we have? We just have a normal light. I'll even show daylight because some of the options on it are quite good. So as you can see, we've got a daylight effect here. What I love about this is that you can change the latitude and longitude. You can change the time. So you know, it's just really endless what you can do with this kind of stuff. So if you were doing like a kind of real life scenario here, if you were doing like a film, then you know, you could set this to the time that it was filmed. You could set it to, you know, where you were. You could set it or where the sun was, if you even knew those kind of coordinates. But you know, if you were actually doing some enthusiast stuff, if you were doing some film work for a studio and they wanted something like this, then you know, this is obviously an option. So it's just really good that they've added all that. So I think that's about it for the tags, and next up I'm just going to get into the settings. Here we are again, back in Octane, and what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be using the settings and just looking at what kind of things we can do with this. So obviously here we have random settings that are kind of overwhelming, but you know, once you start using them you'll get used to what they really do. So as you can see here, we've got max samples. This is the main one that I'll be using, because max samples is basically, as you can see, it's quite grainy, and this is how you reduce the grain. So normally what I do is up here is in direct lighting, I normally switch it to path tracing, which is probably my favourite one. It resets all these settings though, so I'm going to do uncheck keep environment, and it sets the max samples up really high originally. I'd only recommend going up to like 2000 for any given render, for like a movie render kind of thing. If you're doing like more than 10 seconds or something, then go up to 2000 for the max. But you know, if you're just doing a simple render that you want to be over quite quickly, then I'd go with 500, because this is a decent number. Obviously if you're doing a still, I'd go up to like 16,000, or yeah, I don't even think it goes up that high. Let's go 10,000, see if that goes up to 10. Just remember, you can't actually undo any of these settings. You can only undo the settings that are in the just the normal Cinema 4D. So you just remember your settings originally. You can't even just undo it by going to path tracing or a different one and then going back to it. So as you can see here, we've got our samples up really high. This is what I do for like a still image. And then what we have here is basically we have the camera effects in Octane. So these are the effects that you unchecked here. So if you check these here, these ones will not do anything, but if you uncheck these here, then these ones will become active. So obviously we can do everything we could do in the camera. We can increase the exposure, all that good stuff. We can change the kind of filter here, which I don't normally mess about with. Vignetting, which I put down to 0. As you can see, if we put it up, it's going to fade out the outsides. Post, and here we have the other post settings that you could see here. And the same applies for this. When you check this, and this gets cancelled out. If you uncheck it, then this becomes active. So if I check this, you're going to see that we have the exact same settings. You can get some nice effects, which, you know, you could do in post, but in some ways these look a lot better than some of the things in Magic Bullet or other third-party programs like that. So you can blur them, you can rotate it, you can do a lot of stuff with this. There's a lot of potential for it. Now here we have settings. Settings inside settings. So what we have here is if you have more than one graphics card, you can select that graphics card to be used. What I'd recommend obviously is having your main graphics card not doing anything, like the one that's plugged into your monitors, until maybe you render. Then you could put it on low priority, so their screen's actually usable. But what's brilliant about this is that if you have this rendering, you can, like, you know, you can play games, you can do any kind of demanding task with your normal GPU. So I could go ahead and play, you know, like Dying Light or some other AAA title without having any lag at all if I just uncheck this GPU here, because this is my main one. And GPU 0, which is the bottom one, which is the 970, that's the one that I'm using for previews and normally for just rendering, because, you know, it's a decent card, but it's not quite as good as the 780. So yeah, here we have the priorities. So this is basically how much of the GPU is going to be put towards rendering. I'm probably going to blur out some of the stuff because it's probably got my account information, but I'm just going to go through this and show it. So there we have, this is where you're going to put your user ID, which you'll get emailed when you buy this. Here, if you want to export your scene to Octane, the standalone version, what you can do is you can search around your PC and find the octane.exe. And then what I can do is I can go into, where is it? File, edit in, standalone. And then what we're going to see is you're going to see Octane standalone load up here. And if you're having any render errors, then you can show the render log, which will let you figure out what actually went wrong in the scene and what you need to change. So there we go, that's the log. That's probably about it for the settings. Right, so we're back again with Octane, and what we're going to do here is we're going to show how to do kind of materials for this. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to grab and show you the different kind of materials. Obviously we've already created a glossy material, and I'll show you some of the different settings in here. So like bump, what I can do with bump is I like going into Cinema 4D Octane textures and going to marble, and then as you can see we've got a really nice bump on there. If we go in quite far it looks a bit dodgy. But a bump is not really like a displacement effect, because a bump is just like, it's kind of like a trick. It's the light shining down on it will show the bump on the object, but a displacement is actually displacing the different polygons of the object. It'd actually be quite cool if, you know, you'd had like a planet kind of thing, and you created a mixed material with this in it, with like a kind of fiery thing on it, and then you could animate the offset. You can add textures to each individual thing to create kind of separate bumps and stuff. We've got the opacity of the object. We've got the index, which is kind of like how reflective it is basically. And the roughness, which is kind of like a frosted glass effect. So if I uncheck bump, you can see that if I bring the roughness all the way down, you're going to see the complete reflection, but if I bring it up, it's going to look frosted. And you're not going to see the reflection of the lights and such. So this would be good for like a ground effect. So one of the problems that I found with, you know, wanting to create like a black texture or something, you could create the black, but since the reflection is the main part of this with the index, when you actually do this it's not really that black. So what you can do is you can go into specular and set this to just like a grey, and you'll get a real kind of black object there. And when you turn this down, what you do for like a plastic, If you wanted a plastic kind of object in your scene, then you put the index to 1.3, but if you want a kind of metallic, then you're going to want to go up higher, like 8. So yeah, that's just the basis of glossy materials there. The diffuse, I don't really use it because there's not many reflections, there's not any reflections for it. It's just kind of boring and I don't like it. We have specular, which I'll just create a new one for specular. Create shader. Octane material. So if I go into here, what we can do is we can go into specular, and we have our glass object here. Now this is quite realistic because if you go into the film index section, you can actually look up film indexes for different liquids. So you know, you could or transparent objects. So if you wanted like I'm not sure, like if you're doing like a kind of drink advert or something, then you could look up the film index for like I don't know, some kind of alcohol or something, and you could get it looking like that, and then you can go into the transmission, and then you can change the color to like an orangey, you know, you can mess about with it, but you could do that. And then to kind of get this to work, what you really need is to have an object behind it. So I'll probably just make a plain, and then what I'll do is I'll go into the object, set this to Z, that's right, and then I'll scale it up, put it behind it, and then we can add just a normal material to it. Ooh, wrong one. So there we go. And then if I actually add the right material to this, you're going to see that it's going to be the same color. If you had a lot of things in your scene, you're going to see a lot more reflections, and glass will look a lot better. I'll pull up an example if I find one of what I've rendered with glass. There, where are you? Something like this. You can see that the glass is kind of like it's warped all around it, and you know, that's what you could do with this kind of glass here if you had a really good scene. So what else can I do? I'll just put the transmission back to clear. A film index, if you want to do a glass, then the film index of glass is 1.52. So there we go, just if you wanted to know that. So if you want to do kind of like a glass, you want to do like a house or something with a big kind of window looking over the scenery or the view. You have all the different settings that you normally have in like a glossy material. Even in the medium, what you can do, medium, is you can go into the Cinema 4D tags and absorption medium, and then you can create a SS effect. I've not really messed about with this much, but you can like scale it, and then you can add like a different color, so when light shines through it, it has a really nice effect. So I'll add a light just to see if this will actually work. Maybe we'll just bring it to the side or something. Looks quite nice, but you don't really see the thing. Oh, there we go. If we don't have a background behind it, you can see that the absorption medium is making it so that the light shining off it is just showing the red. So it looks really nice. Maybe if we turned down or turned up the, where is it, roughness, then we wouldn't see all the reflections in it. Get quite a nice effect there. I don't know if changing the temperature would make it different. Oh yeah, if you make it red, then it might look quite nice. Or if you made like a contrasting color like blue or something, then you know, also it's quite nice. You don't really see any reflections, so if we go just spin around it, you see there's a lot of different reflections. It looks really nice. Also here, back here, it's obviously reflecting off the light parts of the HDRI. If your scene is also quite dark, what you can do is you can go into the power of the HDRI and turn it up. which is it's a really nice thing to do, because if you want to, you know, do some color correction, this will kind of counteract like adding curves or something to it. And you can also change what part of the HDR is being shown. So as you can see, if I change the X, it's just going to show the light on different parts of the object, which you can animate. As you can see, there's keyframes beside it, so you can do like a animation which would kind of look like a light going past it, I guess. But this is an easier way of doing it, and you obviously have a lot of different lights in the HDRI. So yeah, this is just a really nice effect you can do. Hope you all enjoyed my little Octane overview, just showing off the basics of what you can do with this amazing program. But just to round the video off, I just want to thank all of you for 8,000 subscribers. It really means a lot, and I never could have imagined coming this far with this channel on YouTube. So I hope you all continue to like and support my content. And I should be uploading a video talking about my community reel, which I'm going to be doing with Ragdoll for 8K. So go and drop him a sub, because he does some insane work with Octane, and I know you guys are really going to enjoy his stuff. So apart from that, I'll see you guys in the next video.